It's Thanksgiving Sunday, and it's a strange Thanksgiving for us in a lot of ways. This community is bereaved. There have been 3 deaths closely tied to this community in the last 2 weeks. Yesterday, for the first time in a year and a half, this sanctuary was packed as we said goodbye to Leona Morgan. Not the last time there was a funeral, but the last time I presided at a funeral in the sanctuary, it was for her daughter. And that family is big, and a lot of people are connected to that. And so we're hurting. It's also not been a great year for the farmers. And Thanksgiving, is when we celebrate the farmers and the harvest. And how do we celebrate when people have had to sell off parts of their herds because they haven't been able to have enough feed for them? Because the weather was so strange this year and it was too dry at the wrong times. And yet others did have abundant harvests of different kinds because farming is so complicated. And then we turn to look at the life of the church, and with the pandemic, we see a quarter of the people on Sunday morning that we're used to. And that's hard. See, Thanksgiving isn't about forgetting that there's hard or dismissing that there's hurt. Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving anyway. Like the prophet Joel saying, yes, we've received this harvest. Yes, God will return and bless us. And realizing that they understood the way the universe works a little bit different than we do and tended to think of God as directly manipulating the weather, where we, I think, see it a little bit more complicated, although I'm not sure with how many people ask me to pray for good weather for their special events. I can't take that responsibility. The good news is that God exists and that there is always a future to hope for. There's a future for the universe and for us. Farmers speak of next year. Well, there's always next year. And when we're in this strange time that we're in right now, we too need to be hopeful, as farmers are hopeful, that next year will be better, that we'll get through this pandemic. There is a future after the pandemic. There's always a future after the pandemic. After the great plagues in Europe, there was a future. We are here. We are testament and testimony that there is a future after pandemic. But right now we're stuck in the middle of it, and it's hard. Families are being torn apart as we try, the people that we have elected and the people that they have appointed, try to find the best ways to keep us safe, and it ends up creating conflict in families because you gotta sit there with your vax checker at the door of your house, like this is, or people who would never say, oh, forget about those rules, they're just silly. People who would always follow every rule no matter what are feeling pressured to cast those rules aside. And I will say what I have always said, please listen to the health people and follow what they say. They are doing their best to keep us safe, and they understand this thing better than we do. As much as we might learn on YouTube, there's more that you can learn in university. So how do we cope in the middle of this? How do farmers cope in the middle of drought? When the reality is that some of those farmers will end up losing what they have. But there's still a future. There's still a hope. We don't know what it looks like yet. The future is unclear, but God is already there. So what do we do now? How do we live now? How do we turn the switch in our minds from complaining and grumbling to thankfulness, to releasing to God's care the things that we can't control? For the church, for me, this is I can feel the tensions between life and death right now, alive in this congregation, as we're feeling drawn down by the pandemic and the energies of the trends facing all churches right now. But I also see signs of new life and new hope. When I saw how many children were here today, maybe some of them are visiting, maybe some of them are here because Grandma told them they had to come and it's Thanksgiving. Maybe they're here because Trista is awesome. That's, I think, a real factor, that Trista is, in fact, awesome. Are you listening downstairs? Are your ears burning? But there's something stirring. There's something coming back to life. I was so excited to meet with Tori and to walk with her as she prepared for her baptism. That she's just coming to the church, reading the gospel, learning about who we are as United Church, and is excited to be a part of who we are. Not that we're saying, hey, look at us, we're better than other people, but we have our own distinct representation. And if we as Manitobans can cheer for the Blue Bombers, and the people in Saskatchewan can cheer for the Rough Riders, we can be a part of different churches and celebrate them, knowing that we're not really in competition. We're in more competition with Netflix and brunch than we are in competition with each other. We're all pulling for this dream of Jesus to make the world in God's dream, into God's image of how we should be together. And there's excitement and movement in that way. We said goodbye to a matriarch. That's really hard. It really is hard. And we are watching as one generation is reaching the point where they're stepping away from some of their leadership. And that's hard. It's hard to step away. It's hard to watch people step away. But we also see new people stepping in. We were going to be doing an infant baptism today as well, from somebody that may or may not even be known. I think that the mother is from away, is a United Church person whose membership is who grew up in a church in near Moose Jaw. But she grew up in the church and she was bringing her family here. There's new life coming in. That's what we have to look for. We have to fix our eyes on what is good, what is new, what is alive, and know with confidence that God is going into the future with us, that we do not need to worry. We need to be faithful. We need to put our values and our beliefs into practice, even when it's hard. And I am thankful for each one of you being here, creating that energy of being together as church. So may we, when we leave this place, may we leave in thankfulness with our eyes open to the things that we are thankful for. Thanks be to God. Amen.